Hi, everybody. I'm back again with another student testimonial. And today I would like to introduce you to Gary. He just finished my action boarding mentorship, the 5 week one. So, Gary, could you, just introduce yourself, tell us a little about yourself, where you're from, how long you've been storyboarding, etc.?
Sure. So my name is Gary Rush. I am a freelance storyboard artist, and I'm about to start my first studio job as a junior 3D animator for Ardent Animations Pop Paper City. Tomorrow, I'm graduating from university. I'll study a 3-year bachelor's degree studying the art of computer animation. So, that's me.
Awesome. So we're here today to talk about your experience in my 5 week action boarding mentorship. And the first question I want to ask, and I always ask every student, is there are like so many, educational things online right now. Like, why did you decide to take this mentorship in particular?
Well, the first thing that appealed to me straight away was the one-to-one session, I think. I've attended workshops before in storyboarding, just learning the fundamental basics, so like doing like a beginner's course for Animation Mentor. We had about nine students attending every like one day during the week. And that's great. And we get given like chores or little tasks to do and little exercises that are kind of like essential for someone who wants to get into storyboarding, which is great. But I feel like what I really struggle with and what I'm kind of like, I get a bit nervous about is finding a methodology that I'm more comfortable with that allows me to produce faster and more efficient storyboards for a client. So I've been constantly applying for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and I get given loads of feedback. And it was a bit of a trial in getting my storyboards to a standard that would be required for me to get into the industry as like a junior storyboard artist. But I think what's a real struggle is, getting accepted is one thing, but also, I want to get accepted in a job potentially in storyboarding, and be surrounded by senior story artists and kind of like looking over people's shoulders and how they work, and finding a methodology that would be helpful to me in producing more effective and more efficient storyboards. So I had like a bit of a wave of interviews for animation or storyboarding. Sometimes I get one interview, and one interview can turn to 2, 3, 4 interviews, and I end up getting nothing. And sometimes I get the odds, get the occasional freelance job in storyboarding, whether it's for a friend or a friend of a friend, or sometimes with an advertising company, but they're very brief. And so, then I came across your workshops that you're advertising on LinkedIn, and it was a one-to-one session. So I was very intrigued already. I thought this would be great to work closely with someone who's working in the industry, and just watching closely and how you prioritize your time. And also, for example, when I gave you my storyboards for this project I worked for this workshop, I like watching how you use your line work and using very few lines to get your point across. And I tend to fall into a case of like, I get a bit precious with my work. So a lot of line work comes in, and that's one thing that will slow me down in getting to deliver storyboard work faster. And just watching you, like where you place your line, but obviously because you've had it with time and practice. But that's basically what I wanted out of the course personally as well, is like seeing how you work. And I know you always say like you're kind of like someone that people would rely on in producing these storyboards and delivering them fast. So seeing you like the draw over sessions, I thought, oh, okay, so you can do it in like 10 to 11 or 12 lines, opposed to like 15 or 20 or 30 lines to get your point across in one frame. So that was very helpful, and that was kind of like what I've been looking for, and something I can use to kind of springboard me in finding my own shorthand as a thing, because I learned for action storyboarding. It's very different from other types of storyboarding work I produce, because usually it's mainly adventure or kids entertainment, and I've never done action before, so that was like a big challenge for me. And I think it kind of enforced me to find a new shorthand, because the shorthand that I relied on for previous work, it didn't allow me to produce storyboards faster for storyboarding for action. So when I was like doing a lot of trial and error, I was discovering a new shorthand where I can draw fast and produce a lot of boards to get kind of the action sequences across quicker. So yeah, it was a good challenge, and I learned a lot from you and how you were able to break it down into pieces, because like you say, like when being someone who hasn't done action storyboarding before, watching like scenes from like The Incredibles or all these great films that display great action, it feels overwhelming. But then when you break it down, there's the kind of the foundations of a great action sequence. It's actually pretty simple with the way you did it. So yeah, so that was exciting for me, and that was very interesting, and I was very intrigued by it.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm seeing you're like really, really enthusiastic about talking about the class. And I think you probably answered a few of the questions I wanted to ask.
Oh, did I?
But the next question I want to ask you is, you were able to develop an original sequence in the 5 weeks, an action sequence, right? How, if you had to describe the process to someone watching this testimonial, how would you describe the process of actually developing that sequence in the mentorship?
I think, well, from a personal experience, I think it all comes down to, what's happening basically in your story. So I write it down like little bullet points, kind of like not like bullet points, but kind of like I kind of write it down first. So like just I'm not thinking about camera angles or poses or that at all when I start it off. I'm kind of thinking about the story, who is the character, what's the character's motivation, what does the character want, what's in the character's way, and then getting to understand the character, and then you kind of find the story. It helps you find kind of a good opening and a beginning, a middle, and an end. Finding those first 3 acts, that's the kind of the thing, the most important thing. But I guess it always starts with a field of ideas whenever you want to come up with an original action sequence. So writing it down first, and then as I'm writing it down, I'm kind of simultaneously imagining ideas for sequences that can kind of convey what it is I want to express to an audience. So I'm already getting flashes of images in my mind of what I want to draw off as I'm writing, like while I'm writing down like a script treatment, say it. And so then I will like write it down, and then I'll kind of like after I wrote the whole story down, I would then look at Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, and I'll start doing some rough thumbnails next to it. I'll do it on paper, and then I scan it into Photoshop, and then I kind of like order them up, so it gives me an idea of the opening for this shot, what happens afterwards, and the beat breakdowns, like when one of the sessions where you were talking about beat breakdown, so like which character attacks first, that's the first beat, and then the villain will attack next, that's the second beat. So and that was really helpful in actually breaking down. I kind of treated it kind of, I was thinking of kind of like when you're an animator and when you're doing the keyframes of posters. I saw the beat breakdowns as kind of keyframes for the beginning of one action sequence, and where that piece of that sequence ends and where the next beat begins, and so forth, so forth, so forth. So that kind of like helps. And then all the in-betweens was kind of like, how many panels do I need to create to cover the first beat leading into the start of the second beat? And I say it's kind of I know I used this word before. I was very like intuitive. I know you say it's the voice of story that kind of tells you, oh, this is what happened, and then this is what happened. It's a very intuitive thing. It's not something I think that can be taught. It's something that takes practice.
Yeah.
But I think what really helps is like the beat breakdowns and all like the aesthetic things a story artist should say. So all like the tools that that storyboard artist must possess to kind of get the point across and get the story across.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very intuitive, and it takes practice. I think that was my overall experience of the workshop.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
So the mentorship itself, it had a kind of like was broken up into like two sections, like the presentation side, the theory side, and then the kind of simulated story room. In the presentation side of the mentorship, like if you could, just in a short way, just kind of say what are the things maybe that you didn't know and you saw for the first time, and like it's like, oh, I didn't know this, and now I'm gonna use it now in the future for future boards.
Yeah. I think besides the beat breakdowns, I think the having a different perspective on the editing side was very interesting. I saw editing. Well, one part I was kind of already familiar with was kind of like where it takes practice, and you kind of like you've done the boards, and now and you kind of like when you do a first rough cut of the boards cut together into an animatic, you're kind of like, oh, it doesn't work, or it needs this amount of frames, or it needs something else. But the part that was kind of new to me, based on learning from you and how you, based on those examples of great editing, the editing felt like it was emphasizing what a character's feeling or what a character is doing. So when we were watching a scene from a Jackie Chan movie, the editing was kind of behaving the way Jackie Chan is behaving when he does like his karate or he's taking out these bad guys. It's kind of like the editing was kind of like it was helping to carry the personality and the emotions of the character. Yeah. And then we watched another sequence from Pineapple Express where there's like a fight sequence going on in the bedroom, but it's more kind of it's more clumsier and it's more kind of like not so consistent because the characters are like stoners or they're drunk. So the editing is kind of like acting with what they've got with the shots in a way. So that I found very interesting, and I never saw it in that way before. When I'm editing together a storyboard, I never saw editing as kind of like an editor being like an actor or helping, And I think that comes down to like whenever they edit a big Hollywood movie, for example, editing can really save your movie. Like good editing can really save a movie, and it's huge. And watching those two examples of like the Jackie Chan and the press sequence, editing is, I just realized just how important. I know editing is really important because that's where the magic happens, but how important it is to help kind of express or kind of like emphasize the character's emotions and what they're doing in the sequence. So knowing when to edit, knowing when to cut to the next angle and stuff. So that was something that was new to me that I'll definitely take on board. Because I never saw that way before. It's kind of like, it's really cool.
Awesome. So Gary, you said that you're like just gonna graduate from school and stuff, right? So if you had to, based on your experience taking this mentorship, if you had to describe like the level you should be at to take this mentorship, like who do you think the right people be to take this mentorship? What level they should be at to take this mentorship?
I think there's two things. I think the mentorship, I think, would be relevant, or be relevant to people who are wanting to go on artistic endeavors like myself. Like I have ideas I want to bring to life, and storyboards is a great it's a great profession in kind of showing your ideas in its rawest form. So I think it doesn't matter what level you are. I mean, you don't have to be a great artist, sophisticated artist to be a storyboard artist, but you got to have an awareness of like perspective and composition and cinematography. So I think someone who has a love for movies, I've watched a ton of movies, I watch like a library of stuff. So and really studying movies, great movies like Tarantino or Francis Ford Coppola or Scorsese or Steven Spielberg, Ridley Scott, all those guys, because and kind of really kind of break it down, kind of like, what is it that makes that movie so great? What is it that made those scenes so great? And really focusing on the technical aspects and kind of like, and also like you were recommending, like learn reverse storyboarding, like reboard a sequence from your favorite film and really understand what is it that makes that sequence so great. And you don't have to be like, a professional artist to do that. You can just study, and I think your drawing gets better once you keep on practicing as a storyboard artist. You keep practicing to be more loose with your hands. Try not to be too precious. Keep drawing, get all those 15,000 bad drawings out of you until you start coming up with some drawings that are clear, and it's what you're communicating to the audience is clear based on your drawings. I don't know. I think it's not a matter of what level you're at. It's a matter of how passionate you are about film and drawing.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes. I think it's kind of like just having that drive to wanting to draw or wanting to storyboard. I think it would go to those guys who have like a drive for telling stories, or a drive for bringing ideas to life, or realizing ideas in its earliest form. That's who I'd say who this mentorship would be interested.
Awesome. Okay, Gary. So I want to let everyone know where they can find your work or see your work. And could you like tell everyone like what's your like Instagram, your LinkedIn, maybe a portfolio website? And
Yes.
if I can, I'll put it in the description of this video. So if you all want to go and check out Gary's work, you can as well. But still, kind of just tell them where they can find you.
So you can find me on Instagram. It's at Gary_Rosh_official. I've got a LinkedIn page. It's just Gary Rosh. And those are the two platforms I'm kind of been using a lot of late. Instagram's great for, showing content. So like, whenever I'm working on anything, like all the projects I worked on when I was in university, all of my personal projects I've been working on, or the stuff I've been doing for your workshop, anything that I feel is ready to show, it's great content to put on your Instagram. And also people in the industry are always, I think Instagram and LinkedIn are kind of your, it's the future of portfolios, I think, because I think cover letters and CVs and personal websites, it's great and all that. You want to look professional, but no one's going to be looking at your website, and no one's going to be looking at cover letters and CVs, because they probably get given so many CVs and so many cover letters. But everyone's on social media platforms, whether they're while they're working, or when they're on a break, or in their leisure. So I think the best way is using your Instagram, your LinkedIn, and using those social media platforms to and just populating your page with content, because you're more likely to be approached that way by people in the industry, because everyone uses Instagram, everyone is using LinkedIn, industry people looking for work, and they're bound to come across it in the news feeds. And you get people liking and commenting, or they'll share it or repost it. I think it's a more interesting, more laid back way for a talent acquisition manager to come across, rather than them having to go for the effort of having to find your website or having to read a CV or having to read a cover letter, because I think, people have they've only got so much time to look at CVs and cover letters, and and to them it's just words, and and it might mean something to you, but it will mean nothing to them. But I think showing content and having that, expressing visual work, showing your visual work will interest them more than the written work. And this is a visual media. So I think, so I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, find me. And I would recommend that to anyone who's trying to get their foot through the door in the industry, whether it's animation or storyboarding or whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree. You should post more stuff on LinkedIn and Instagram. And I think even more LinkedIn, because the algorithm is way better than Instagram. You'll get more people to actually see your work. And, I'll give you some free advice to whoever is watching this video. Post your work on LinkedIn and do not hide it in your portfolio. If you do a new sequence, post it on LinkedIn, post it on Instagram. Don't say, I just made a new sequence and leave a link for somebody to click it and go. Don't do that. Just actually post the actual sequence, whether it's an animatic or something like that. Just post it so when people are scrolling, it's really easy for them to actually just watch your sequence, right? So I will end it with that piece of advice. Gary, thank you so much for sharing your experience in the action boarding mentorship. For those of you who might be interested in wanting to take this mentorship, there will be spots available very, very soon. I'm hoping next week to post when spots are available. And if you want to join, just shoot me a message, whether on Instagram or LinkedIn, and we can see if the mentorship is right for you and we could have a consultation call, right? So thank you again, everyone, and thank you again, Gary. I hope you enjoy the rest of your journey.
Yeah, thank you very much, Raja. All the best.